Hi everyone, it's my pleasure to introduce Courtney Roulston. Now, she first rose to fame after finishing as a finalist in Series 2 of MasterChef Australia 2010. Since 2011, Courtney has been working as the head chef at the Sydney Swans AFL team, cooking for the players and working closely with the Team Dietitian. For the past decade, she has also proudly represented Coles supermarkets and as an ambassador and has had the pleasure of immersing herself within various events, media and catering jobs scattered throughout Australia. Having recently participated in MasterChef Season 12, All Stars Back to Win, she's looking forward to filming Season 2 of the popular network 10 cooking series, Farm to Fork. So it's my pleasure to introduce Courtney. I'll clap for you.
Virtual claps all round.
How are you today,
I was going to say
Courtney?
good morning, but it's good afternoon, isn't it?
Just on the dot, actually, 12:01.
It's just on the, yeah. So I'm in, just so everyone knows, I'm in hotel isolation. So the day really, the hours of the day have very little meaning, really. It could be morning or afternoon here.
Yeah, I could imagine. And are you halfway into your isolation?
Today marks day 7. So yes, we've hit the half, Lauren. So it's going okay, actually. I think just like today's virtual expo, it's amazing what you can do from a telephone and how many people you can connect with through your Instagram and your Facebook and have conversations with people and sharing food, and people seem very interested in the food that I've been getting delivered to my room. So I think it's just, that's, much like today's virtual show, 2020 is just, you've just got to roll with it. And yeah, the internet's an amazing thing to connect us all, just like today's show.
Definitely. It's about staying adaptive. And I don't like to use the word, but pivoting in these situations.
That is, yes. So I'm into day 7 of pivoting through this hotel thing.
So I want to ask you exactly, before we start talking about the allergy-friendly scone recipe you created, where did your love of cooking come from? Hello everyone, and we're back. We apologise, a few technical difficulties. That is the beauty of the virtual world. However, now we're going to head back to our conversation with Courtney. So Courtney, we're talking about where your love came from with cooking.
Yeah, I think for me it was probably born out of necessity. I'm the youngest of 6 kids. So my parents were very busy working parents. My mum owned a dress shop with her mum, my nan. So my mum would get home at like 6:30, 7 p.m. most nights. My dad was a technician with telecom, back when it was telecom. So I was home from school at 3 o'clock. I was often the first one home, being the youngest. My brothers were in the workforce by the time I was at school. So I just started cooking to help mum out. Otherwise it was dinner ready at 8:30, 9 p.m. So I just started cooking after school, and I would ring mum, and she would kind of run me through how to put a leg of lamb on. It was a bit like dial a recipe. I'd ring mum on the old, the phone that used to have the showing my age here.
I have seen photos of them.
Yes, I know. And it was just, I discovered that I really loved cooking. I think being the youngest of 6, for me, I was quite shy. It's hard to have an opinion when you've got so many other opinions under the one roof. So for me, I didn't know it at the time, but cooking was a bit of a way of me communicating without having to talk or have an opinion. It was a good way of getting noticed too. When you've got 4 brothers, they take note when you've made a cheesecake or a chocolate cake or a lemon meringue pie or something. So I started cooking at about 8 or 9 years old, just to help mum and dad out. And then I found I loved it. And it got me out of doing homework as well. No one knew I wasn't doing my schoolwork if I'd have cooked dinner. So it was a win-win. Yeah.
That's the best. And it's like, well, you're providing food for us, so we're not going to complain if you're not doing homework. That's fine. Tummies come first.
Exactly. You can't have everything. Yeah.
And
it was good. I think cooking's like sorry.
No, you go. Keep going.
I was gonna say, I think cooking is probably one of the most important life skills you can learn. Like, of course, English and maths is important, but I really do think cooking. Everyone should be able to cook and feed themselves, no matter what age they are. So I think it is really important from a young age. People learn to cook, whether you teach yourself or you are taught through the internet. Super important.
I definitely agree with that one. Like I've had a couple of mates who went to uni and had no idea how to cook because they were so used to living at home. So it's a massive reality check when you leave your home and you enter, university or the workforce, and you've got to try and come up with these skills. And it was constantly like, I remember I used to ring up my nonna being like, Nonna, how do I cook your soup? Nonna, how do I do this? How do I do that?
Yeah. 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 So I was lucky. Just have always loved cooking, and I'm lucky now that it's, I somehow have a career off the back of it. So work doesn't feel like work for me. Yeah.
And you yourself don't actually have an allergy or an intolerance, but you have had to adapt because you are the chef for the Sydney Swans AFL team. How do you find that?
I'm not gluten or dairy free or anything myself. Working for a professional football team, so I cook for about 70, the two teams, so the main team and the reserves and the coaches. And of course, working with Coles, I mean, we do some big dinners for 400 people at head office. And there's always allergies, whether, once you get more than 8 people, there's going to be an allergy somewhere in amongst it. So I think with the Swans, it's quite, it's the modern era, and you have to find ways. And there is lots of recipes. There's lots of, great food. At the Sydney Swans, the way I kind of manage that, their lunch is a big buffet lunch. So rather than mixing everything in together, often the meals will be separate. The bread is served separate. Their salads, I try and keep nuts out of the salads. Like I'll use lots of seed mixes or spices to give texture into the salads. The meat dishes, I'll try and serve the protein separate from, say, if I'm doing soba noodles, I just keep the soba noodles quite plain. So I have 3 boys that are gluten-free. And more recently, I've got 5 that are vegan. So,
so do you have to cook a lot of tofu for protein or?
lots of tofu, but lots of like mushrooms. And if I do a day, so with the Swans, we do like a cuisine every week. Everyone thinks the boys just eat spaghetti bolognese. It's not the case. We travel the world in the kitchen. So if I'm doing schnitzels for the main team, say oven roasted schnitzels, then I will do mushroom schnitzels for the vegan boys. So I use coconut cream on the mushrooms, and then I'll put a gluten-free coating on, whether it's almond meal or crushed corn chips, or I try and give them the same meal, but just adapt it so they don't feel like they're missing out and they're going, oh, everyone else is eating schnitzels. It's still so they can have it, whether it's a cauliflower schnitzel or a mushroom schnitzel, or So you've just got to get a bit clever and still go. You're still eating that is crunchy and delicious and soft on the middle, but it's just a mushroom or it's cauliflower instead of chicken. Yeah. So.
And that in our Free From an Allergy TV channel, it was virtual again for you, and you dialed in, and one of your recipes was actually the chicken schnitzel. And I did want to ask you, I know there's a lot of kids out there who love chicken nuggets. With that chicken schnitzel recipe, is there a way that they could adapt that to make it into chicken nuggets, whether it just be cutting into smaller pieces or coating it with something different?
Definitely. And the reason I chose a chicken schnitzel for our YouTube cooking is because I think everyone loves a schnitzel. The pubs are all shut this year, and they're really easy to make at home. They're pretty great value. Like you can make a chicken schnitzel for kind of under $10 for the family at home. Very easy to make it kid friendly. I've done a lot of work with the Stephanie Alexander Kitchen Garden Foundation with their partnership with Coles this year. So their thing is all about getting kids in the kitchen And I'm sure there's been lots of parents with kids that have been home for the last 3, 4, 5, 6 months this year. And I think cooking is a great activity to get kids in the kitchen with. So with the recipe we used for the YouTube channel, of course, you can just cut chicken smaller and use the same coating. I think I would take the deep frying out of it for kids. And there's lots of other gluten-free coatings you could use for the chicken as well. We used a mixture of almond meal, chia seeds, and sesame seeds, and some turmeric for colour. But you could easily get, I know Coles have some gluten-free corn chips, and you could put them in a food processor and blitz them up and cut up chicken breast or chicken thigh into small little nuggets and coat the chicken with that. So if you're wanting to do them nut-free and dairy-free, use some coconut milk instead of the egg. And you could use some crushed up corn chips on the chicken and then just put them on a baking tray, spray a little bit of extra virgin olive oil, 200-degree oven for about 30 minutes, and the kids will have really yummy, crispy chicken nuggets. And of course, the work I do with the Stephanie Alexander Kitchen Garden Foundation is all about getting seasonal veg into kids as well. So you can do a cauliflower nugget as well. So cut up little florets of cauliflower, just steam them for a couple of minutes to start the cooking process, and then the same, go into your egg and crumbing mixture, a little bit of spray oil, some sea salt, and bake them. And they're really yummy vegetarian version as well. I know we've got lots of and not just for kids. I know we've got like AFL grand finals coming up and footy finals and Melbourne Cup, and there's lots of things where people want snacky things to have. So yeah, they'd be really, really great for the next couple of months where we're going into entertaining and kids at home and kids on school holidays.
Yeah, well, Michael actually called you the cauliflower queen in the TV series. And so I wanted to actually ask you, what are your 3 favorite recipes with cauliflower? Because I myself didn't know how versatile it was. Like I knew you could do a few dishes with cauliflower, but what are your 3 favorite recipes?
Yeah, my middle name's going to be Cauliflower if I'm not careful. And it's when you say 3, it's really hard. I have so many favorite cauliflower recipes. I think my number 1 at the moment is to do a whole roasted cauliflower. So I did one as part of the Coles What's for Dinner campaign earlier this year. And I mean, I go into Coles some days and cauliflowers are $2.50 for a massive cauliflower. It's such a versatile and really cheap way to feed a family at home. So the one I did, my favorite one at the minute is a miso roasted cauliflower. So you dunk a cauliflower in water, make a miso glaze and whole roast it. And it goes like really, got a really lovely, salty, sweet, umami crust on the outside, and it gets a really lovely, creamy center. And it's really easy. You just bang it in the oven and you come back in 45, 50 minutes and it's done. So number 1 is a whole roasted like centerpiece cauliflower. And I often do meat-free Mondays, and it's great for having a roast on Monday night. My second one is cauliflower fried rice. So that's where you just grate up a cauliflower on a box grater, or you can put it through a food processor. And it's really yummy. It's a great way of, like, I've got nothing against rice, and of course it's gluten-free, and it's great. But I know if you've got diabetes or anything, you don't want to be having lots of white rice. There can be quite a bit of sugar in it. So for me, it's just another way of getting lots of veg into a fried rice recipe, and it tastes like rice, and it does the same thing that rice does, but it cooks really quick. And you can add loads of stuff into it, prawns, loads of ginger and garlic, and a bit of gluten-free soy, some chili, coriander. It's like a 15-minute, really speedy midweek dinner, and it's super tasty as well. Bit of hot sauce on the top. It's really yummy. My third one, I'm here in hotel isolation at the minute, and I made some pickles on my my Instagram page yesterday using the kettle to heat up the pickle mix. So pickled cauliflower is probably my third one. And I think now that we're in spring, and hopefully people are going to be allowed out for picnics, and as I mentioned, Melbourne Cup, and just entertaining and something to have, you know, if you're wanting a really quick dinner where you don't have to cook something when the weather gets really hot later in the year. a jar of pickled cauliflower in the fridge takes 15 minutes to make, and you can have it in the fridge for a couple of months and just snack on it or put it on a ploughman's board or just pimp up your salads during the week. That'd be my top 3. I could go on, but I'm going to stop.
That's fair enough. Well,
yeah.
Have you ever tried to make cauliflower pizza? Because I know that there's a few recipes going around to make cauliflower pizza base, but when I've actually tried myself, I find literally the base just crumbles. And being Italian, I really do appreciate a good pizza base, but I find it hard to actually find one that actually holds together. Do you have any suggestions?
Yeah, look, do you know what? I get quite obsessed with things. I haven't myself made one. But I've read lots of recipes, and I go down and scroll into the comments, which is where you find if recipes really work or not. Of course, an author of the recipe is going to tell you it's going to work, but you need to scroll down to the comments where people, because everyone's ovens are different. Everyone's cauliflower is going to be slightly or have more moisture in it than someone else's. So I love scrolling down the comments. The best recipe I have seen is where you blitz a cauliflower in the food processor, steam it in a microwave. So rather than steaming it on a stovetop, is to do it in the microwave where there's no natural steam. Putting it into a clean chucks cloth, squeezing out all the moisture, and then adding in some egg into it. You do need to then pat that into a tray, and before putting any pizza toppings on, you need to give that about 10 or 12 minutes of baking just on its own. So you're essentially making a cauliflower fritter with eggs. Before you put any like wet tomato sauce on it, though, you need to give it that first baking time in the oven. But
and I guess
I do hear you. There's lots of people, there's lots of recipes, and some just crumble and fall apart. I was watching an old Nigella, of course in ISO, a bit of time to watch TV. And Nigella was on yesterday, and she was in Florence, and she made what she was calling a pizza, which is basically a pizza base made from mince, which I thought would be a great suggestion for today as well. I wouldn't suggest having it every day. It's probably quite high in calories. But as a treat, her pizza was basically mince and some eggs and then some flavorings, whether you want to put some fennel seeds or garlic powder or whatever it might be in there. And she just pushed that out into a pan and baked it, and then topped it with cheese and tomatoes and stuff. So that's a good thing to bring up for today. You know, cauliflower is great, but Nigella has a meat-based, gluten and dairy-free pizza base as well.
Definitely. And then it's a similar process. Once you pop it in the oven, I presume you then take it out and put the toppings on?
Yes, yeah, and you can top it with loads of things, broccoli or cheese, or there's loads of like vegan cheeses or cashew cheeses that are out there. So if you're doing the cauliflower one, you could still make it vegan. But yeah, I thought it was quite interesting. As I said, you probably wouldn't want it every week, a pizza made of meat, but I think
but once a week,
all about
maybe.
ideas. Yeah. It's all about ideas, I think. Yeah.
And just getting creative as well. Who would have thought a meat-based pizza?
I know. She probably upset a few Italians doing it. But, I think this is where it's taking an idea of, and this is what all today's discussions are about. People's favorite food. How can you make pizza or pasta or something still looks and feels like those foods that people want to eat, but makes them allergy friendly?
Well, that leads me to my next question. I am Italian myself, and I love bread. I love pasta. I technically shouldn't have it because I am gluten intolerant and it does upset my stomach. But I really struggled to find a recipe that you can actually create a good fluffy bread and it doesn't taste like cardboard. Do you have any suggestions as to how to create a nice gluten-free bread, or have you done one yourself?
No, I'm probably the only person in Australia that hasn't jumped on board the sourdough focaccia bandwagon of 2020. I've probably been busy with lots of other things. So I'm going to be completely upfront. I haven't mastered a gluten-free bread myself. I know Coles have a new range coming out very soon, I think it is, and that's going to include things like bagels, and focaccia, and Turkish breads, so gluten-free breads that are a little bit left of center of just your regular loaf. But I think, again, it all just goes down to sharing cooking shows. I do love cooking shows, even though I'm on them myself. I watched one the other night with Sylvia Colocca, and she is Italian, and she made, and it looked amazing, she made a gluten-free focaccia. So while I haven't mastered it, for anyone interested, it looked like Sylvia Colocca has mastered it, and she made a gluten-free focaccia. It seemed like she had to rest the dough for quite a long time, and not knead it too much. And she put some delicious fillings. She had prawn and tomato topping, and she had another one with some anchovies and olives. And it was just, for me, I was just like, it looked really, really good. So I can't claim that I have a good recipe, but Coles have a new range coming out with some really different breads. And maybe if people want to Google Sylvia's bread, it looks really good. I'm sure there's some other speakers today that are coming to the virtual expo that probably have some good recipes as well. Seems to be the one thing, people want bread. Everyone wants bread.
It's that, and I think it's that comfort too, especially being in Australia at the moment and being in Melbourne. It's sort of just turned into winter again. And so people always want that comfort and the warmness of it. And there's something so yummy when you find like a good bread. So it's like, how do you find those options that suit your intolerances or allergies?
Yeah, and I think it's those nostalgic, like the scone recipe that we got requested for. I think people are getting nostalgic about the food we made in olden days, and maybe people cook really modern food but haven't mastered scones or haven't mastered bread. And I think that's been the silver lining of 2020, is people revisiting those recipes or our nan made, but it's skipped a generation. I feel like it's come back again. So for me, I feel like it's been the really good silver lining of this year is everyone can make a loaf of bread.
Yeah. And that actually, talking about your gluten-free, allergy-friendly scones, can you talk a little bit about that? I know one of our Facebook community members actually asked for this recipe to bring back the traditional recipes we all grown up with, and make it intolerant or allergy-friendly. And you seem to have mastered that with the scones.
Yeah, look, I guess we really love gluten-free flour, because a lot of the suggestions that for recipes, I think someone wanted me to make a satay sauce that wasn't with seeds or sesame seeds or with tree nuts, or like I just kept hitting roadblocks. Like I really tried for so long to find a satay sauce alternative, but the scones seemed, quite an easy one because we do have access to gluten-free flour. Or if you didn't want the gluten-free flour, there's always quinoa flour or coconut flour or almond meal. I think with baking, we've found a lot of different alternatives to still make baking work. So for me, I was in a MasterChef challenge 10 years ago where we had to cook for 150 CWA women out in a field, and I got put on scones, and it was a real eye opener because, as I said, everyone practiced all these fancy recipes for MasterChef, how to make a gel and liquid nitrogen. No one practiced just basic old school recipes. And let's just say the CWA women were less than impressed with some of the jams and scones that we made on that day. So I made it my mission after that MasterChef challenge to nail a scone, because I just thought it's so crazy that I don't know how to make good scones. And I discovered that recipe that is literally 3 cups of self-raising flour, a cup of cream, or in this case I substituted coconut cream, and a cup of lemonade. So you get those bubbles in the soda water and you get sweetness as well. So it's literally 3 ingredients, pinch of salt. I just adapted it to make it gluten and dairy free. And it works a treat. And the blueberry jam I've been making for a long time. It is so delicious. It's so easy to make. 7 or 8 minutes, some blueberries, a little bit of maple syrup and chia seeds, and you've got a banging blueberry jam that you can have in the fridge and have it on loads of things. So I really hope people give give either the scones or the jam or both a go, because they're really easy and delicious, and they're very suitable for 2020 cooking.
Definitely. And then when you found with your scones, gluten-free, when you're making any type of gluten-free product, it can be quite hard because you can overwork the dough. Do you
Yes.
find like how do you master that? And how do you know when enough is enough needed?
I think it's and I think a lot of people know this trick, but my nan always used a butter knife to mix the scones, so don't use a spoon. The butter knife actually is just the blade really gently cutting through the dough until it just comes together. Just soft hands, very gentle, soft hands. I think the thing is with scones, you want them to have a few rough edges. Don't knead it so much that they're looking really smooth, because you're going to overwork it. Gentle hands, leave them looking a bit rough and rugged, and you'll have really nice soft scones. Yeah.
And then with the jam as well, cook the blueberries first and then you pop the chia mix in to thicken it up.
Yes. Yeah, so just a bit of multitasking while the blueberries are just softening down for a couple of minutes. Put the chia seeds in water, and that starts them taking on the water, and it gets them puffed up. So when they go into the jam, they only need a couple of minutes to come together. And I mean, that's a cooked jam. You can do a raw raspberry jam by just crushing a punnet of raspberries in a bowl, and then adding in the maple and the chia seeds, and it's a no cook jam that you can have on your yogurt or your coconut yogurt or your gluten-free bread, or you can use it on anything you use jam on, really. Banana bread, I've had it on. Yeah, chia
Oh, that
seeds
would
are
be
great. They've got that really setting agent in them. So, yeah.
they're quite versatile. My next
They are, and
question.
look, my mum made jam growing up, and it was always stressful. It always burnt, and it took hours to set. So if someone wants a really quick, and it's a fun one again, if kids are on school holidays, I think the next week or two,
Yeah.
then it's a fun recipe they can make at home without any too much dangerous equipment needed.
Yeah, definitely.
It's
My
and it's
next
healthy.
question. Well, chia seeds, they're good omega-3s. Blueberries are good. So absolutely. And they don't have as
Yeah.
much sugar as traditional jams either.
Yes, yeah, which is a big thing. Kids get a sugar crazy, and they're at home with you. So,
And especially if you're in lockdown, you can't go anywhere.
yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Now, my next question, ice cream. So many love it. It can be hard to find a really good dairy-free alternative that doesn't taste almost like grainy. I found that a few of them. Have you found a good product that you like that is a dairy-free alternative to ice cream?
I have, and this goes back. You said at the beginning, I don't have any intolerances or allergies, but I actually don't eat a lot of dairy. It used to give me lots of spots on my face. I didn't realize. I did this, I trialed doing paleo for a couple of months. And while I'm not on paleo anymore, I did discover that not having the dairy, so I do actually eat a lot of non-dairy ice cream and things. The Panna, and none of this is branded or anything, but the Panna branded ice cream, it's not the cheapest thing. So it really is something I only buy a couple of times a year. It's about $10 or $12 for a very small tub. The Panna ice cream I do find really addictive. The choc mint one is really yum, and it's got the same texture as regular ice cream. But on saying that, we do have at home, before going on MasterChef, I was trying to find really quick ice cream alternatives, and I made an ice cream using avocado, coconut cream, and some lime juice. So you just blitz it all up, and you can either, and it's really simple. If you think about it, ice cream is just, usually with egg yolks, it's a fat and a sweetener and some kind of dairy component. I find the thing with making really fresh dairy-free ones at home, they're best eaten on the day. So you can blitz up a couple of avocados, a can of coconut cream, some maple syrup as a sweetener, and some lime juice. blitz it in a high-speed blender and freeze it for a few hours, and it still keeps that really creamy texture. It's when you try and keep it for 3 or 4 days that it either freezes rock solid or it goes grainy. So I think it's best making a fresh batch. Me and my partner often have, because I'm the type of person that goes, we're not going to have sweets this week, and I don't buy anything at the supermarket, and then you eat dinner and 10 minutes later I'm like, oh,
You need that
I
treat.
wished I'd have. And I always have a bag of frozen berries in the freezer, and I'm someone that hoards, you can see my fruit behind me. When the bananas go bad, I freeze them. So peel them, freeze them in a Ziploc bag in the freezer, and a cup of frozen bananas, 2 cups of frozen berries, with some maple syrup, and a pinch of salt in a blender. And it's called nice cream. So it's basically dairy free, and it's just fruit. So the banana gives creaminess and sweetness, and the berries give a lovely color as well. And it is so, like, I'm going to say it's nicer than regular ice cream. It's so yum, and it takes, as long as you've got a high-speed blender, it is the best thing to whip up for those nights where you say, I'm not going to have a treat after dinner, and then you decide you want one. And it works every time. And of course, now that summer's approaching, you can use frozen mangoes or frozen berries. You can freeze your own stuff. Any frozen fruit, blitzed up with a pinch of salt and some kind of sweetener, whether it's your maple, or if you use lots of banana, you don't need a sweetener. It's honestly delicious. Never fails. But again, you've got to eat it within a few hours. Otherwise, it goes rock hard in the freezer, because you don't have those stabilizers or milk powders in it that the commercial brands have, which is good. It's better. It's just full of goodness.
Yeah, exactly. And it's fresh. Because that is definitely one of the struggles. Especially with summer coming up, it's like you just want that ice cream. Or I know I even do it after dinner. I'm like, no, I'm setting good intentions, don't really want any sweets. I'll save it for the weekend. And then literally as soon as I've finished that last mouthful, I'm like, oh, okay, what do I have? What sweet can I have now?
Yeah. So I just think, collecting, everyone has bananas that go bad in their fruit bowl. Peel them. Obviously, you can use them in banana breads, but I feel like that's more of a winter thing now that summer's coming up. And you can make like so many yummy different flavored ice creams from, as I said, you can either use avocado as your fat, or you can use coconut cream as your fat in the ice cream, and then any frozen summer fruit, peaches, mangoes, berries, put in a sweetener in there. And it's delicious, and it's healthy for kids, and they can help make it as well. It's instant. You don't need any like ice cream churners or anything.
You could even like put in some cacao powder if you wanted like a chocolate and ice cream.
See, now you're talking my language. Yeah.
Add some chocolate in there, please.
Yes. Yeah. There's lots of as I said, and it's just about experimenting. Like, I didn't invent these recipes. Someone at some point in time went, well, I can't eat eggs, or I can't have cow's milk, so I'm going to see if this works. And I think that's just living with allergies, is about experimenting and seeing what works and seeing what you like or what your kids like. And sometimes you discover things are better than the original. Honestly, the ice cream is better. My nice cream is better than commercial ice cream, I will say it is. So, all about experimenting. Yeah.
If there was one food you could not live without, what would it be?
I've thought long and hard about this, and there's 2 categories. There's foods that I need. Like, I've just spent 5 weeks down in Melbourne filming a cooking show and cooking for myself, and I'm now in a hotel for 14 days. So the one food I feel like I need for me is vegetables. Like, I love, if I don't have fresh greens for 3 or 4 days, I really crave just steamed broccoli with some extra virgin olive oil and chili on it. Like, I feel like my body, I crave that. That's my need. And then there's my want food, which is the food that you necessarily don't have to have. And I think it has to be chocolate. And I know it's really stereotypical, but for me, I love a square of chocolate with my coffee in the morning, which might sound weird, but that's just, I love having some chocolate with my coffee in the morning. And I've discovered there's lots of good vegan chocolates on the market now. I've tried lots that are really chalky and not very nice. Again, the one in at Coles, in at the health aisle, the Panna chocolates, everyone would know them. They've got a coconut one that's really nice. Or the Loving Earth do a really good vegan, their dark chocolate, 70-something% one's really good. So yeah, it's opposite ends of the scales. My body needs greens, and I love steamed greens, roasted greens, just with extra virgin olive oil. And then my want is chocolate.
Yeah.
Chocolate
it's
and
all
coffee.
about moderation.
Yeah.
Coffee, absolutely.
Yeah.
And weird question, but with your chocolate, do you actually dip it into your coffee? Because I've started to find that I've got a habit with that. With my tea, I'll put like my square of chocolate in to get like the creaminess and meltedness in it, and then put it in my mouth. And I was at home the other day, Mum's like, "Why are you dunking your chocolate in your tea? That is so strange." I'm like, "No, it melts instantly."
Yeah, well, I think that's the dairy-free chocolates can have that. They don't melt as quickly as the other ones. I haven't. I'll have to try that tomorrow.
Try it.
Sunday morning, I'll give that a go. But yeah, I don't know. If the French can have their pain au chocolat in a croissant, then I don't think it's any weirder to have a square of vegan chocolate with your coffee in the morning. It's good, full of antioxidants, nice and bright, ready to start the day.
Now, unfortunately, our time is nearly up.
I know.
How quick has it gone?
Oh well, look, I can talk the leg off a chair, Lauren. So
Yeah, me too.
it's always going to go quick. Yeah.
I did want to ask you though, and I'm really curious. For those, if you are following along and if you haven't seen Courtney's stories already, make sure you go check her stories because they are absolutely hilarious. And I've been really looking forward to each morning watching what your day on a plate is like in quarantine. And I've noticed that chicken is definitely a staple for you at the moment. So what is
Yes.
for lunch, Courtney? Is it chicken?
Yes. Well, I don't. So for anyone, I don't order the meals. You just you get what you're given. So I asked for low carbs when I checked in because I just didn't want pasta, bread, and waffles getting delivered. I can give you an insight. I had a knock at the door before we started this. I reckon for about 15 out of the 17 meals they've sent me, they've all been chicken. So drum roll. Today is a chicken rice paper roll. And I've got a little, this is actually really good, a tub with some eggs and spinach in it. So I've bought my own, that's actually quite good. I've bought my own extra virgin olive oil and sea salt and some chili flakes in here. So I can pimp these up. Today's a good day. But yes, if you follow my stories, there's a lot of chicken. And I won't eat chicken for a while when I'm out of here. Be lots of vegetarian food, I think, when I get out of ISO. And seafood. I'm craving seafood.
Oh, I love seafood too.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me today. And sorry about the technical difficulties we had at the start. It's been a pleasure talking to you. And if you haven't seen it already, check the Learn area where our content library is placed, and you can find Courtney's allergy-friendly scone recipe there, which would be a great baking treat to do this weekend, especially given the weather at the moment.